Hi, and welcome to the first YouTube video Oov class that I've done. I want to introduce the Oov, and I'm hoping that you're one of my students who's done Oov before, or you've done Oov with other people. This is an Oov in the center of the mat, and you can do all kinds of great core integration and balance work on it. We are going to begin lying on our backs, and I'm going to create three 20-minute videos so that you get different parts of the Oov in each step. So you may want to try different videos and see what's working best for you. So this first one is the classic, figure out how to get onto the Oov, settle yourself down, and begin working on integration of the legs and arms and awareness towards balance. Okay, so for those of you who may not have been on an Oov for a while, this little part we're going to call the head, this back part, the body, this, the neck, and this is the tail, okay? And then this groove down the middle is the groove in the Oov. And so those will be the ways I kind of define how to get yourself onto it. So we begin by sitting towards the tail. Now make sure you have hand weights, and I use 1 or 2 pound hand weights to each side of your Oov, a long theraband around the tail, a circular theraband near you, and we may get to the ball for lengthening out the leg. So if you have a ball, have that close by too. So I begin, and I'm on a small Oov, I'm 5'4", by sliding towards the tail of my Oov. It's much easier to go towards the head once you're on, and then I roll back onto the Oov. And then I let my head come to the floor. Now, some people, I have a little towel here to illustrate that some people may need a little bit of a lift to be comfortable in their neck. You want to make sure that you don't use your neck as a fulcrum. And I actually, on a small Oov, don't need the towel. Sometimes I use a small, sometimes I use a medium. I am kind of a strange person because I'm 5'4", but I have a really long neck and torso because I have 2 extra vertebrae. So, um, so anyway, I kind of go back and forth depending on what I'm doing. So now I'm going to nod my head, no and yes, and make sure that my neck is comfortable, that I have the natural curve to my neck. And one way to test that is to allow my arms to come to the side and maybe, press the elbows a little bit into the floor and then float one leg up. And as I float that leg up, I want to feel into the muscles of my neck and make sure that they're not activating to help get my leg to rise. So then I'll try the other leg just to make sure I'm good. And I am. I'm not straining in the neck at all. So then I'm going to walk my feet together and get my balance side to side. And so my feet are totally touching. You can't see that because the ball's in the way. Um, and I'm just going to allow my left knee to fall out to the left. And I'm going to try not to have my body follow the left knee. So I'm going to keep the sacrum centered, which means I have to use my connection to my low ribs and ground my low right ribs back. And then I'm going to exhale the left knee to center and take the right knee out to the right. And I want you to begin to notice how you use your elbows and your arms and your back myofascial chains and slings as you do this. So if you take the left knee out, for me, I press harder into my left elbow to keep my body balanced. I reach across from my left front ribs to my right hip pointers. I ground back in my right low ribs, and then I come back up. And then I take my right knee out. I try to keep everything else still, which means my right elbow activates, my right shoulder comes strongly onto my back. I feel that back sling. I also feel from my front right rib to my left hip pointer an action there that helps connect my right side body to the left side body so that my whole body doesn't follow the right knee out. And then I come back to center. So go slow in the beginning and really try to feel into what your body is doing so that you can become more conscious, because this device is wonderful. It's like a mindfulness device in creating consciousness in our bodies and of our bodies. And it really helps us create consciousness around how we integrate limbs into the core. So then I'm going to bring the right knee back in and rest and lift my left leg to tabletop and pause and lift my right leg to join. So here I am in a tabletop position, and I'm going to toe dip my left toes and come back up. I'm going to inhale, right toes down, and exhale up. Notice I'm keeping my knee at a right angle, and I'm not going all the way to the floor and rebounding the leg back up. I'm moving slow so I can feel into my body. It's actually creating more time for the muscle work as we slow it down and feel into the body. I'm keeping my low ribs connected to my hip pointers, and I'm tuning into the breath. Breathing into the whole circumference of my lowest ribs. One great thing on the Oov is that the whole rib ring is lifted off. Okay, I'm suspended at the thoracic spine between my shoulder blades and on my sacrum, and my core really has to work. Okay, so even your sides and come back up. And now take the left leg out to the left and pause again. Feel into your elbow work. And then exhale back in. Take the right leg out and pause. Feel how the right elbow is connected to the right shoulder and how that shoulder connects perhaps across to the left hip pocket, perhaps down to the right hip pocket, perhaps even over to the left shoulder, and come back up. And then take the left leg out and exhale it in, moving nice and slow, like you're opening the pages of a book. You're taking the legs side to side, trying to keep everything else still, which may mean that your ribs are reaching across to the opposite hip pointer to try to help you maintain your still balance. Good. And then come back to center. Come back to your breath. And then let's draw the right knee in and lengthen the left leg out. So here's your series of 5 on the Oov. We're going to switch and switch and switch and switch. How still can you stay in balance? Are your arms more comfortable palm up to your side, elbows grounding, palms looking at one another, or thumbs on the low ribs and middle or ring finger on the hip pointers? Now draw both legs in. Flex your feet and press the heels out, point the toes, and come back in. So I'm in a Pilates V, and I'm magnetizing the inner thighs towards one another and then lengthening down to the inner heel. My outer hips are reaching down to my outer heel, and I'm keeping my front ribs integrated towards my hip pointers. And let's do one more. Good. And hug back in. Reach the feet straight up for the sky. And open the legs as wide as your shoulders. Take the heels down, bring the heels together in your Pilates V and up. Keep your front ribs reaching for your hip pointers as you circle the legs away from each other, together and back up. Now don't move out of your range of motion of control. So you may feel that you lose your front ribs or that you come into too much of a back bend if you go outside your range of motion. Okay, keep going with that. I forgot I have a kitchen timer on for my soup. So keep circling. Sorry about this. And now take your circles the other way, down the midline as wide as your shoulders and up and in. Fluid breath. Fluid motion. And one more. Okay. Now turn your feet parallel to each other, and we're going to go walking with legs as straight as is comfortable in our body. So if your hamstrings are tight, your legs do not have to be straight. You can have a bend in the knee, but we're going to be walking down, and as you get down, you can straighten your legs, those of you who need to keep the legs bent at the top. Okay, so we inhale, feet are parallel, and I move my big toe ball mound to mid-arch of the other foot, and then I step down, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and up, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and down. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and up. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and pause. Bend your knees in and take a breath into the lowest rib ring. And exhale. Can you relax onto the Oov and lift the legs back up again? Okay, let's take the right leg overhead and left leg long. And keep the right leg where it is and begin to bicycle the left leg by itself. Now notice how far down you're comfortable having the heel go before you draw the foot in. And notice any movement on your Oov, just playing with the motion. And then let your right leg join into the circles. Try to keep length in both legs as you bicycle away. And try to keep the motion slow and smooth and graceful. So we work on knowing where we are in space as we move, as we balance, keeping the front ribs aware of the hip pointers, letting the lowest rib ring rest back. And then let's take it the other way, reaching one leg out, coming up, bending the knee in, fluid breath, fluid motion. Feel into your own strength and grace. Continue to breathe fluidly. And then come back up and pause. And let's lower one foot to the mat and the other foot to the mat. And rest your arms out to the sides. Can you take a few breaths in this bridge pose? So if you haven't been on your Oov in a while, you may start to feel strain in the back. And if you do, then just come off and have that be enough for today. If you want to go a little farther, reach for your hand weights and take your hand weights skyward, knuckles towards the sky. And to begin with, find your feet. So heels aligned with sit bones or maybe a little wider. Plug in the four corners of your feet. And then take your left arm out to the left and feel into that. How do you stabilize the body? Does the left foot become really active? Can you stay aware of your four corners? Does the sacrum become active? How did the low rib ring react? And then exhale back up. Take the right arm out to the right and pause, feeling into how your body stabilizes for this motion. And then come back up. And let's do it a few more times, taking the left arm out and pausing, feeling into how you create stability, being aware of all four corners of both feet. Come back to center. Take the right arm out and come back to center. And one more time left. How do you create stability? What muscles are active? Can any others help out? And exhale to center and right arm out. Notice if one side is easier than the other. Keep your arm bone integrated, your wrist a little higher than your shoulder, and come back in. Now take both hands overhead, lengthen out the arms, and try not to touch your hand weights down. We're trying to find the length in the back of the neck here. And we're hovering the arms out and above the floor. And then we're going to exhale and bend the elbows and bring the arms back up while we bring the right knee up. And then we're going to place the right foot on the floor and lengthen out. We'll do 3 times right, 2, and 3, and 3 times left. 1, 2, moving slow, 3. Stay with your breath. And settle out, and then lift the arms straight up. Bring the hands down towards your hips, palms up, and exhale. Bring the thumbs around towards the top of the head. Remember, you're making an oval above your body. We don't want our wrists to come low to the floor because that could strain the rotator cuff. We keep the wrists high, and we circle the hands, and we breathe, exhaling up and inhaling down. and exhaling up and inhaling down. And one more. Exhaling up and inhaling down. Let's bring the hands straight back up. Let's take the arms out to the sides, elbows bend, and then bring the knuckles together like you're hugging a tree. And open and hug and open and hug. Inhale and exhale and inhale and exhale. And then bring your elbows to the floor and pause with your hand weights still held up and float one leg to tabletop and the other to join. Now just for a moment, press into the hand weights and see, can you almost hover the elbows off the floor? Don't even try to lift the arms yet. Just almost hover and perhaps hover the elbows. If you feel really stable here, you can lift the hands. If not, don't do it. Just stay low. I have to come back down because I was losing a rib there. So you can just kind of play. Maybe it's just almost lifting the elbows off the floor, trying to find balance, but the elbows are right there to help you stabilize so you don't hurt your shoulders. Perhaps you can float the elbow a half an inch off. Perhaps you can float the hands higher. Perhaps you can lift the hands towards the sky. And we'll pause here and see, wherever you are, play with the balance. Keep breathing. And then lower the elbows down. Step one foot down and then the other. Take your arms out to the sides. Release the weights. Bring your hands back to your belly. Thumbs on the low ribs. Ring finger on the hip pointers. See if you can relax and breathe. Deep breaths into the whole circumference of your lowest ribs. Can you relax your eyes, your forehead, your jaw? Okay, last one here for this little exercise is to draw the ball in under your foot. Keep the heel in line with your sit bone and roll the ball out. And then roll the ball in and roll the ball out. So we're really trying to track the knee evenly out of the hip. Rolling out, we get to lengthen the psoas pathway. You may want to pause there for a breath or two. And then roll back in. And you can keep maneuvering the ball so that it works best for you. May start to feel like it gets too close and then you have to kick it out a little bit. Fluid breath, rolling the ball out and coming back in. Lengthening the psoas pathway, we can rest with the heel out. Take a few deep and fluid breaths. Really let the leg rest and extend here. And then roll it in and switch feet. Get the heel aligned with your sit bone. And find your other foot planted well on the floor and then roll out and track back in. And roll out and in. You could exhale and inhale. Fluid breath, fluid motion. Stretching the psoas pathway open. Should feel good. A counterbalance to the hip flexor work we were doing. You may rest out for a few breaths, trying to relax the muscles inside the pelvic bowl and along the spine. Relaxing the muscles of the face, the eyes, the neck. And then a few more, rolling in and rolling out. Rolling in and rolling out, noticing if it got a little easier after the stretch. And then that's it for this first video. We'll roll to the side to come off and then push ourselves up. Okay, so there's a basic Pilates practice on the Oov. Okay. Thanks for joining me.